I'll go ahead and call tonight's meeting of the Peoria County Board to order. This would be Thursday, July 8th. Would everyone please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Could we remember our police officers and the people in western Peoria County and pray for their safety?
You got it. Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk.
Roll call, please. Missing one here. Kate and Brandy.
Brian. It's Brian, isn't it?
Oh, that's because we thought he wasn't busy. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're going to have to make some changes.
We're going to let you vote tonight, Brian, that's all.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Do we need a rule decision, council? We're getting Brian his voting device.
16 present. Next would be approval of the June 10th, 2021 County Board meeting minutes.
Motion to approve, Mr. Dillon, and a second from Ms. Duncan. I'll advise the clerk that it was brought to my attention that reference to the CARES Act in the minutes should be changed to CURES, C-U-R-E-S. CURE Act. Thank you, Ms. Daly. Any other additions, corrections? Seeing none, please vote.
Ms. Williams? Mr. Rand? 16 ayes.
Thank you.
Next is citizens' remarks.
Mr. Juice? I don't think I'm slaughtering your name, sir. Jose? Jose. So the second O is a long E. Welcome. Who's got to bring in the microphone? Welcome, sir.
On tonight's county board agenda is grant money for the Peoria Election Commission. I would encourage the county board to say thanks, but no thanks. This vote comes after a divided board this past spring declined this grant. Any money from private sources should really receive strong support. And I would also note that within the Ways and Means Committee meeting from this past March, it is noted that there is a June 30th, 2020 deadline to use this grant, so I imagine it's a mistake, but I will note that. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us again this evening. Madam Clerk.
That was the only public comment that we had returned in. Next. Next would be consent agenda.
We have a proclamation.
Okay, I don't have a new agenda. All right. Proclamation.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call up someone whom I think all of us are very, very familiar with, and then two other people who some of us may not be, and that would be Dave Tuttle, his wife, Susan, and a little one back there, Emily. Is she going to get red-faced or smiley-faced? Hi, Emily. Would you bring your mom and dad up here? I think everyone in the room who's been involved in local government, volunteer fire protection, 911, and a bunch of community volunteerism recognizes David and Emily. That's okay. Let me just stand up then and come do this for you, Dave. How you doing? Doing fine, sir. Whereas the Peoria County Board wishes to thank David Tuttle for his dedication and longtime service to this county, and whereas David retired in June as the Emergency Communications Center Director after 38 years in the ECC, with one of his last accomplishments being the upgrade to both the equipment and the working space in the city county 911 center where our dispatch services are housed. And whereas way back in 1983, Dave was originally hired as a temporary third shift dispatcher, and I think you've posted some pictures of a blonde-haired David back then. He was the youngest City of Peoria employee at the time, and he'd already been volunteering for the Logan Trevoli Fire Protection District as a firefighter and an EMT. And whereas as fire chief for Logan Trevoli since 1998, David has overseen the move by Trevoli firefighters in 2001 into their beautiful new firehouse, the 2016 building addition on Lake Camelot, that fire station, the acquisition of more modern apparatuses, I'll just say fire equipment stuff, and safety equipment, and the introduction of the area's first compressed air foam system. And whereas Mr. Tuttle continues to serve on the Peoria County ETSB, which has the responsibility for administering and maintaining the enhanced 911 system in this county, and he's also been integral to supporting emergency services upgrades throughout the county. And whereas Mr. Tuttle oversaw the addition of text 911 capabilities in Peoria County, the campaign for which reiterates call if you can, text if you can't. And starting in 2014, Mr. Tuttle managed the implementation of Peoria County's P25 public safety trunk radio system, which put all first responders in the county on the same radio system, allowing for a better coordinated response of agencies. And whereas the Peoria County Board recognizes his leadership and innovation not just within the county but within the state of Illinois through his service on the State 911 Advisory Board, past president of the Illinois chapter of the National Emergency Number Association, and recipient of their Presidential Leadership Award, and is past co-chair of the Joint Illinois National Emergency Number Association and the Illinois Association of Public Safety Communications Officials Legislative Committee. It's a two-pager. Only seen one of those. Even Mayor Artis didn't get that. Now, therefore, Andrew Rand, Chairman of the Board, on behalf of all of us here, do hereby recognize the significant contributions you've made, David, to emergency communication and public safety over the past 38 years, and we congratulate you on your retirement dated this 8th day of July. Congratulations. Now, I'm pretty sure nearly everybody in this room knows David, and I certainly have known him for the 30.5 years I've lived in Peoria, my home. There's a whole bunch of public safety professionals in the room know that the call for help starts at 911. Emergency dispatchers are trained to do so much in pre-arrival to not only improve the safety in a bad criminal situation, or talk people through CPR, or teach people first aid over the phone, talk with hysterical callers, all while waiting on some blue lights or red lights or yellow lights to show up. And it's really an extraordinary effort. And they're always the community's unsung heroes, even though I think all of us know how hard they work. David has dealt with the changing cultures over 3.5 decades. I think everybody can read between the line, workplace cultures, different generations, and he still has a magnificent head of hair. And I know from working with him at my day job that stuff happens, and people are not perfect, and not once in 30 years, not ever, I think, did David ever point a finger where he clearly could and said, that's on you. He accepted all responsibility just for making the next event, assuring that that didn't happen again. And I think that's just a tremendous accomplishment, to be known as the fixer, the problem solver, and the visionary, because in the last 30 years, I think we're on our 4th iteration of technology platforms. And other than John Doring, perhaps, of Dunlap, I don't think anybody knows them as well as you do. And when you're buying millions and millions of dollars of equipment that has to work, and you can read horror stories in other counties throughout the state where millions have been spent and millions were spent to fix it, and it still doesn't work right. The safety of people, whether they're firefighters or police officers, in these events is paramount, and that dispatcher is the link through all of that. It's just a really underappreciated task. So I never talked this long, but I really think you deserve it. And I know you have to be happy to have him at home doing the project lists we talked about. And I know he's not a carpenter, but we can get you one. So, David, I hope you'll give us a few remarks. And there's some folks in law enforcement over there, and I see some volunteer firefighters in the room too. So congratulations, and I'm really envious. Thank you for all that you've done. I look forward to working with you. He's still the chairman of our ETSB, and we won't let him go anywhere.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, my wife has been extremely supportive these last 38 years. So the Emergency Telephone System Board has been a great board, and has had a great relationship with the Peoria County Board. And we really do have a second-to-none 911 system in Peoria County. It's an outstanding system. It's a beautiful center that we just were able to build. And if you haven't been able to see it, I know Sharon's been there, and Jimmy and Andrew's been there, and others. We'd love to have you down there. I can still help coordinate getting you in the door. But so yeah, and I've been blessed with a great fire department at Logan Travola, and a great employer at the city for many years. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Bye, Emily.
Hey, Dave, I'd like to comment a little bit. I worked with you with the Chillicothe Fire Department, and I appreciate the work that you did with the Peoria Area Fire Chiefs Associations. And also, we should be giving your wife an award too, because of the fact that I know, as being involved in the fire department, how you leave when there's a storm and she's left to be at home, and you leave at all these hours and maybe in the middle of a birthday party. So we thank her for putting up with you for that too.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Now we'll be at consent agenda.
Let's see, starting on my left. Anyone want to give me a motion? Thank you, Ms. Groves Allison. Thank you, Ms. Relaford. 1 and 2 on the floor. Any items on the consent agenda members wish to discuss? Seeing none, please vote.
So many. 15 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you.
Next is zoning ordinances and resolutions. Item 1, case number 012-21-Z, petition of Refugio L. Dominguez Jr., a rezoning request from A2 agriculture to C2 general commercial to I2 heavy industrial. The petitioner proposes to rezone the property in order to bring a truck storage yard into compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. The parcel is located in Princeville Township. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. And Mr. Brian Elsesser on the second. Any discussion? Mr. Rosenbaum.
I'm going to abstain on voting on this one because he's a friend, and we don't do. He brings product into my facility, so I think it's best if I abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Discussion? Record will reflect Mr. Rosenbaum's abstention. Please vote.
Fifteen ayes, 1 abstention. Next is item 2, case number ZBA 2021-000023, petition of DGS Properties LLC, a rezoning request from I1 light industrial to I2 heavy industrial. The petitioner proposes to rezone 6 parcels in order to operate a clean construction and demolition debris outdoor recycling facility. The parcel is located in Medina Township. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Dillon on the first, Dr. Blair on the second. Thank you. Discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Sixteen ayes.
Thank you.
Item number 3, a resolution from the Chairman of Ways and Means Committee and the County Administrator recommending approval of an appropriation of unused grant funds from the Center for Tech and Civic Life in the amount of $19,430 into the FY 2021 Election Commission budget.
Mr. Ricker on the first. Second, Mr. Renaud. I expect a little discussion on this item. Chairman Bartolo from the Peoria County Election Commission is here. I don't want to volunteer him. He did plan to speak if called upon. Any members interested? He has no problem speaking. All right. Any other discussion on the item? Mr. Elsesser.
I just want to reiterate what I said the last meeting. This group that is donating this money is hardly nonpartisan. I mean, I've been looking on the internet 3 months ago and now, and they've been very involved, and they certainly are a left-leaning group. I would challenge the board that if Fox News was making this donation, would it pass? And I also want to say, in asking that question, that I wouldn't even support it if Fox News was making the donation, because I believe with regard to private donations and finances with elections, I think an election is something that should be completely above reproach and have no questions asked whether there's any kind of involvement or any activities that are not 100% in the up and up. And so that's the reason why I'm going to be voting against this again tonight.
Thank you. Others? I want to acknowledge a letter I received from the League of Women Voters in support of the item. I'm sure you got the calls too, so I just wanted to tell you it's here. All right, please vote.
Mr. Salzer? There we go. 12 ayes, 4 nays. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 4, a resolution from the Chairman of County Health Committee and the County Administrator recommending approval of a permanent easement and license agreement by and between the Peoria City County Landfill Committee, City of Peoria, County of Peoria, and the Robert D. Carmen and Grantor Trust and Judith A. Carmen Grantor Trust for easement and access to 3.213 acres for construction of overflow spill way at Peoria City County Landfill number 3.
How many acres, Rachel?
3.213.
Got it. Sharon Williams on the first and Member Duncan on the second. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Coulter is here with PDC. I'd like to give him an opportunity, if it's okay with the board, to give us a little overview of this.
Anybody object? Mr. Coulter, welcome back.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Great to be back in front of the board again. Address this issue with the Peoria County Health Committee. This meeting back at towards the end of May. But what this pertains to is the lake rehabilitation and wetland enhancement project at the Peoria City County landfill site. What we're attempting to do here is when we develop the first phase of the Peoria City County landfill number 3 project, we will be disturbing a wetland. We're going to do that project work on site now, and we're going to be building that wetland in the strip mine lake that you'll see on the left-hand side of the entrance road when you come into the site. What we'll be doing is filling in half the lake from the development, the removal of about 1.5 million cubic yards of earth. Some of that will be placed in the strip mine lake to basically develop this wetland. And then the other part of it will be used to kind of fill in a peninsula between the lake and the landfill property. In order to build out this, basically remove the entrance road to the facility from the strip mine lake, we have to get a permit from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And as part of that permitting process, right now we just have one primary spillway that discharges actually into the Carmen's property, who you're going to be hopefully approving this permanent easement and license agreement with. Now what we'll be doing is we'll be developing another spillway, an emergency spillway, an overflow spillway. And our design engineer, which is Hanson Professional Services, thought that the best emergency spillway to construct would be on their property, that adjoins your property out the site. That's this 3.21 acres. So don't know why we didn't round it off to 4, but it's 3.21 acres. So basically what we're asking for is an easement, you know what I mean, for the Carmens to give us a permanent easement on their property to build this spillway. That obviously benefits them. However, what they asked for in return is if they could access their property through this overflow spillway that we'll be building on their site through this permanent easement. So that's the purpose of the license agreement. So I think it's a good, mutual exchange between all the parties. And they have seen it. We've staked off the property for them to see that. And so they're on board with this. And so the Peoria City County Landfill Committee has approved it. We're in front of you tonight for your approval, and if we get your approval, then we'll be going in front of the Peoria City Council on July 27 at their meeting. So that's kind of an outline of that. I did let Chairman Williams know, of the Health Committee, we just learned yesterday that we did get the Army Corps of Engineers approval for the wetland project. So we've received IEPA Bureau of Waters approval and the Army Corps of Engineers approval. So that has occurred since I addressed the Health Committee meeting back in May. That's a good sign because the Illinois Department of Natural Resources was copied on that. So we've got half of this process as far as the permitting approval is done. So the last piece is with the IDNR. So that's kind of a fresh update. You're getting that before the landfill committee gets that, but I thought I'd share that with you this evening. So I'll be happy to answer anyone's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. Madam Chairperson, you good? All right. Seeing no hands, please vote.
Sixteen ayes.
Thank you.
Next would be item 5, suspension of rules.
Council?
You'll be voting to suspend your rules as it relates to voting on the proclamation without it coming through committee.
Thank you. Motion to approve. Mr. Ricker, then Dr. Blair. Thank you. Please vote.
Ms. Daly,
Ms. Daly,
Chairman Wren,
Chairman. Snakes.
13 ayes, 3 nays.
Thank you.
Next would be item 6, proclamation extending the declaration of emergency due to COVID-19 in Peoria County, Illinois.
Thank you, Madam Council. Yeah, well, I'd just like you to explain it.
Certainly. This is our monthly proclamation to state that we're still in a state of disaster. This, of course, allows us to receive the necessary funds and for COVID relief and COVID measures that continue on. Happy to answer any questions or have Scott answer any questions.
Thank you. Seeing none, please vote.
Twelve ayes, 4 nays. Oh,
Oops.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Jim.
We're moving too
Mr.
fast.
Renault. Oops. Okay, so can we count the vote?
I think you should revote after,
Yeah, I'm gonna
since
try
we
to
didn't
go
have a
back.
motion on the floor yet.
Okay. That's why you're here.
Sorry for the extra work.
Everybody ready? Please vote and forgive me. I was rushing so that Jennifer could leave soon.
Still don't have the motion and second in there. But I'll write it in.
Jim and Rob were the...
Okay. 12 ayes, 4 nays.
Thank you. We would be at miscellaneous. I'd like to acknowledge the effort Gretchen and Jamie put forth, really for 18 months, which is when Scott wrote Senator Duckworth's office to see if she would keynote our dedication to the final salute. This is a miniature of the real deal. We're going to auction this, right? It's government property. I don't know. This is an extraordinary event the capstone dedication on a, how long, Scott? 20-year project, 11 years. And we'll have some speakers here. I'm sure Mr. Salzer will give us the short version of his Saturday speech. But I'd like Scott to talk about it a little bit, because not only did they successfully persevere for 2 decades in fundraising for something that's just doesn't have sizzle to donors, and of course we have invested in it as well, in a small way. But the power of this event was bigger than I could imagine, and it was, you really felt in the moment with some serious military, government, community service leaders who attended, and I just was so impressed, including my chance to meet the executive lieutenant colonel from the Air National Guard. He's just like flew F-16s and everything else. He's just extraordinary. Scott, if you'd take a few minutes.
Sure, happy to, Mr. Chairman, and I'm nowhere near the historian that Mr. Salzer is, but the efforts that the organization and the community have put forth over the last approximately 2 decades to get to where we're at last Saturday are quite extraordinary. Yourselves have invested several $100,000 in the construction of the World War I and II memorial and the final salute, which for many of you are likely aware that we do have a memorial to Peoria County citizens that gave the ultimate sacrifice in Korea and Vietnam, but nobody really sees that because it's on the wall of the original courthouse that is now in basically the outer lobby area of the circuit clerk's office. For a long time we talked about how could we bring that outside so that everyone could benefit from that, even when the building is closed for business on, say, weekends and holidays and after hours. We commissioned a local landscape architect that worked on the World War I and II memorial to come up with a design, which is the design that we have today. Several individuals were instrumental in modifying that design and making it better. I'll specifically call out Larry Evans, former chief civil assistant and now a felony assistant in the state's attorney's office, who did not fly missions with Senator Duckworth, but flew at the same time and has known Senator Duckworth for a substantial amount of time. He made personal contributions to the design and layout as well. We were fortunate enough to have on loan from Wildlife Prairie Park a statue from the Korean, I believe the Korean era, that's the one with the soldier and the German Shepherd, so that's a canine and an MP. We commissioned an original piece from Preston Jackson for the Vietnam era, and then the statue the miniature that you see here and that we dedicated on Saturday represents the War on Terror era, and it being a female aviator. And in talking to former clerk Sonamaker and Mr. Salzer and members of the War Memorial Committee about how we might go about doing this. They were, in terms of dedicating the statue and dedicating the memorial, it was Steve's great desire that we try and secure Senator Duckworth, being that she is a female aviator and the statue is that of a female aviator. It's correct that roughly 18 months ago in December of 2019, I sent an email to the statewide director for Senator Duckworth saying, introducing myself and saying, hey, I've got this request for a speaking engagement, something that we could work with you and the senator to try and get calendared, knowing full well that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do it on a specific day in time, but really would be at the behest of the senator's schedule. And then COVID happened, because the statue's actually been done and ready to have been installed as early as Memorial Day of last year. It was just sitting with the artist in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, waiting to come here to be installed. obviously, we got through to a point now past through COVID where we were able to have Saturday. We worked with the artist for him to get it here. Kelly Ornamental set it and has set the other two statues and have done a fantastic job. Opperly Construction built both memorials and did a fantastic job in building both of those memorials. And the ceremony that Gretchen and Jamie put together with a substantial amount of input from Phil that happened on Saturday and emceed by the chairman really was a culmination of all those events. And I would echo, Chairman, your remarks in terms of the specialness of Saturday's event.
Salzer?
Well, you know how you hear about speeches of Lincoln and Franklin D. Roosevelt and people such as that, Winston Churchill. They'll be long remembered. Mine will not be long remembered.
It was just long, Phil.
Yeah, and that's why two judges were out there. McCuskey was hollering at Brandt, saying, "Get the hook, get the hook." I know I was a little bit long. History is long in our life. I hope it continues to stay long over the course of my lifetime, which might be short. I don't know. But anyway, I did enjoy doing it. I know that the people that we honored really deserved it. And that's been a long time coming. You think the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. I heard more complaints, not to us, but just complaints. Why don't we ever honor these people? And in Vietnam, because it was so controversial and so forth. And I had some former students who are on that wall. I had a Bradley student a classmate, that's on that wall. And there may be some others that I have overlooked. But those two eras have been sadly overlooked by our nation. And I always say that of all of the monuments that I've seen in Washington, D.C., I probably think that the Vietnam one is the best. I really admire. And tell you just a real quick story. Ross Perot brought the one here to Peoria. It was 1/40th of the size of the one in Washington, D.C. Another guy who taught social studies just like I did at Peoria High School, he drove the bus, and I corralled the kids, and we took our students over to that wall. Every class that we taught, and we really enjoyed it, and the kids enjoyed it. One connection there was we had a former student by the name of Kirk Riley, killed in Vietnam, 1965. Is that pretty early? And so the swimmers, he was a good swimmer. The swimmers, they created an award for just the swimmers and named it after him. A kid that was in my class had gotten that award. In fact, he got it 2 years in a row. His name was Ammerman. Derek Ammerman coached for a while out at Notre Dame. I don't know whether he coached at Dunlap or not. He did not coach, but I know he had some connections with some swimmers from Dunlap. He and I got off the bus, and I said, "Derek, I'm going to take you up there and show you how easy it is to find somebody on that wall." I said, "We'll look up Kirk Riley." It was kind of a foggy morning, and a woman was walking about 10 feet from us. She says, "That's my son." His mother was walking in at the same time that we were there early in the morning. And I thought that was so ironic, and I introduced Derek to her and said about how Derek had won the award, and that was, of course, named in his honor. She greeted him, and I said, "Have you ever been to the wall in Washington, D.C.?" And this is a sad thing. "No, and I never will be." That was the mother's response. But I did enjoy, telling a little bit about the history here in Peoria County. Sorry if I bored you.
Thank you, Phil. Mr. Renaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the pleasure of going on Saturday, and I too wanted to thank everybody involved in bringing that here. And I was able to bring my sons with me, and I know that that'll be an experience that they'll remember for a lifetime. Excuse me. Senator Duckworth has a platform and a status where she was able to share her story, and I knew what her story was, but I didn't know what Mr. Evans' story was. And I have to tell you, if you have an opportunity to watch the video that they recorded of that service, I encourage you to. I mean, it's impressive. And to know his helicopter that he was piloting took off 10 minutes prior to Senator Duckworth's. So, it very well could have been him that took the mortar shell. So it's very impressive. So thank you all for sharing that with us.
Rob's youngsters got to meet the senator. She's very gracious. Okay, so we'd be at miscellaneous and announcements. Go ahead, Phil.
Mr. Chairman, we got our fair coming up next week at the 72nd Fair. I hope everybody got a little invitation from our to our fair, and it's part of our community, and it's been part of our community, as I said. For this is the 72nd. I got a little jump on it because in 1948, when it was built, I was able to go out with two of my two older brothers, and we rode the tractors. Our father was part of the group that donated time for about 3 or 4 days, and they leveled the fairgrounds. In other words, that used to be a dairy farm, so a group had purchased that, and they got some people together, a couple of different unions, a labor's union, the operating engineers union, and they donated all their time, and it was the biggest land moving operation in the world at that time. In fact, it made the movie tone newsreels. If some of you are too young to remember the movie tone newsreels, they're in the theaters and so forth. But anyway, we would love to have you come out to the fair, enjoy it. There's a lot of things. There's a couple of new things, and I'll let you be the judge of them. Thank you.
Don't forget the tractor pull, too. My nephew runs the tractor pull, so.
I didn't see that coming. Great. Mr. Dillon?
Well, there's a lot of friendly faces in here tonight, but I just wanted to mention, when I saw Mr. Runyon here earlier, I asked him, I don't see any Easter seals on the agenda tonight, and I thought you retired. Well, you did retire, but it's been a long time since we've had an observer from the League of Women Voters, and Jim took on the task. So friendly face for a lot of us that have been around the horseshoe for a while from when he'd give reports. So if you haven't got a chance to meet Jim, you're going to be seeing Jim probably every month, I would assume. So take some time to introduce yourself. If you just want to raise your hand, Jim. I know a lot of us are new. And the second visitor I wanted to recognize is Victoria Bartolo, very sharp young woman who will probably be sitting around this horseshoe someday when I'm long gone. So I know she loves government and hanging with her dad, so welcome to the meeting tonight.
Okay, we got you on camera now. All right, is that it? Because I got to get Jennifer out. We'd be adjourned.